Hello, everybody. Okay, I'm done. I've done a new setup. I've moved the TV from my TV room, and it's the big glare. So I'm going to actually figure out how I can fix this. Oh, I know. I'll switch the angle. Alrighty then. Okay, so I'm gonna start trying to put things a bit more formal and put it onto a system where you can see things, and I'll be making notes. And if you want a copy of the notes, you're more than welcome to email me at james@arfbarkbark.com, and I'll send you a copy of the notes. This is just a beginning aspect that I'm just trying to figure things out. And sorry about the microphone with the dog hair on it. But I will be going over things on this structure here, and I'll read it through and talk to you about why I wrote these things, what my motivation was, what were my personal experiences, and how I came about to develop this method of modernizing dog training by addressing dogs at a psychogenetic root level. In other words, addressing dogs at the core aspect of the psychosis where it starts to happen as a minor issue, becomes a dysfunction, and then fully formed to an environment in the dog's mind that they cannot handle what is going on anymore. And so they start to go down to the core emotions and just behaving at that root structure. What I do is destructure that to kind of figure out why this happened. And it's kind of like problem solving. So this is what I'm going to do with these things. And I'll get that through. And let me just see here. So we'll go back here. And I think I'm on the keyboard. So there we go. So I'll go over these things. I'm going to probably unplug that for a second here. So that way you're not getting, actually, this is first time, so I apologize. Anyhow, so I'm going to go over things on how to address them, and like I learned how to do what I did because I didn't know what I was doing. When I first adopted my Great Dane, my beloved Great Dane Lincoln, he's up there on the mantle here, along with my other beloveds. I had no experience. Zero experience on working with dogs. I did not realize that Lincoln, who was 154 pounds, was quite dangerous. And he was okay, but his family had said, people had told him that he should be killed. He was too dangerous, unpredictable. They ended up putting him in a kennel, in a boarding for 6, 7, 8, 9 months at a time. And I got him when he was 5.5 years of age. And I learned all these things literally by being afraid of what was going to happen. And he would lunge and he would yank me off my feet. And these things would really be quite scary. I didn't know what to do. I contacted Great Dane Rescues before I had adopted. They said, this is what you do if you ever have an issue with your dog, any dog, etc. They talked about treats and everything like that. And the reality is, I'm just going to take this out because it's in the way. Sorry. The reality is none of that worked with a dog that was dangerous. And I realized after time, and all this is going to be just sort of a conflation of everything that I've learned, is that giving a dog treats, especially when they're dysfunctional, they're angry, they're going to core emotions. When you give them food, when you create a disingenuous, contrived environment, and you give them food as that motivation, if your dog is quite dysfunctional, you are actually eliciting predator behavior. The traits are going to come through because evolution is the survival of the fittest, as per Darwin. So then you literally contribute to your dog's dysfunctions by making it worse, by saying, I don't understand what's wrong with you, but here's something, here's some food. It's like being in a relationship and you just have to you want to throw money at it all the time, and it doesn't work. What does work is if you spend time, you speak to the person and say, hey, look, we got to talk about some stuff. That's the same thing when it happens with our dogs, is the point that if we know that they're scared, they're having issues, they're being dysfunctional, whether or not they're trying to attack other people, other dogs, myself, it's understanding that the way they're able to comprehend psychological issues, dysfunctions, is not natural. In the wild, that's it. Predator behavior, boom, that's it. Nothing else. We're asking a dog, a domesticated dog, to spend time with us and live in our home. Who are we? We are humans, absolutely. We are a cross species, though. We're not the same. We are a different species. And to be able to live together is incredible. Same with cats and horses and all that stuff. So why does that happen on a behavioral aspect? It's literally a matter of dependency, codependency, the familial structure, the friendliness, that's codependency. We want our dog to understand that the safety, all these things that are happening and how they process. But you also have to remember, they don't have any reference point. They can't learn what it's like to feel happy, or they can't feel what it's like to learn how to get through an angry situation and self-regulate. So what I do is, like with Lincoln, is I learned how to just experiment and test and test. And I've been attacked. I've been picked up physically. I'm almost 190 pounds. I've been picked up off the ground by a Great Dane and shaken. And I talked about this before. It's extremely frightening because I'm learning what his personality is like. This is with anybody, right? You test a situation and see how they are. You go on a relationship adventure with somebody. You figure out what that's like with them, whether or not you mesh, whether or not there's a short-term, long-term, or no relationship involved. It's the same thing with your dog. But we have to remember, again, we are the humans. We are able to have a sophisticated structure of comprehension. Evolutionarily, we're apex. We rule everything in the world, and we're trying to design artificial intelligence that has instinctual behavior. We're trying to create life on a digital platform, guys. This is how evolved our species has become, and people aren't realizing this. But the core aspects of our drive to survive and create life, even if it's mechanical, is the fact that we have a dependency, we have a structure, a familial structure from the beginning of time to be, to procreate, to be more of, to be egocentric. The psychology on that process is how dogs are perceiving it. Every animal, if we put ourselves, again, at a scale of 100, and we place all the other animals in the aspect of sentient processing, we have a scale, we have a dilutable scale of behavior that we can attribute to quantifiable behavior, aka consciousness. It's really that simple to create the structure if you understand what causes the dysfunctions in dogs. So when it comes to trainers and behaviorists, PhDs, and I have such an animosity for PhDs because their ego prevents them from ever having a novel interest in anything outside of their academia. So like Dr. Ian Dunbar and Dr. Claudia Richter and all these other people, Dr. Rebecca Ledger, they don't have a comprehension first because they've never worked with dogs at truly the level that I work with, and dogs that have tried to kill or skittish because they've always gone to the point the dog can't be fixed, so we kill the dog because that's the way the dog is. Your dog is relying on us to protect them at all times. It does not matter. Your dog is relying on us to keep them safe because as a cross species, as a dog with a rudimentary processing of cogency, everything is watered down. The analogy that I use when I describe this to my clients in sessions, video sessions and all that stuff, is as if you're taking a frozen can of orange juice and mixing 3 cans of water in it. So that's us, right? 3 in 1, perfect, right? The ratio, awesome. For our dogs, try to imagine as if you're putting in 20 cans of water to 1 can of orange juice. You can taste that, right? You can taste the orange juice. You just can't figure out what it is. It's kind of like, is that orange juice? Is it pineapple juice? What is it? That process is rudimentary, right? It's diluted. So I'm giving you a human analogy so you can comprehend what I'm talking about, and then you get scale. Then you get woke. It's an intellectual process that's going on of comprehension. How do we create a perceivable scale of quantifiable sentient traits in animals? We create that from us being number 1, and then we follow the patterns down. How do animals communicate with us non-verbally? If you aggregate everything they say, bark, whine all day, it's less than 2 minutes. That's 98% non-verbal. So all these things are happening. If we start noticing how these non-verbal behaviors are when your dog is trying to run out the door but then stops, Why? Why? Is it raining outside? Is there something scary outside? Are they waiting for us to go outside? Then we put that into scale. Why would our dog stop? Wait a minute, that's almost a human behavior. But no, it's a psychological behavior based on evolution, right? We all have the same brain. We all have the same mapping, structure, and basics, except that we just happen to genetically, luck of evolution, be human and have the apex sophistication. So our perception of dogs is really quite rudimentary and quite conceited. So today I want to talk about one thing. I was going to talk about this. I want to talk about something else, and I'll try to keep this under 1 hour. I want to put it into scale of comprehension of what is going on. So one of the things I saw today was in regards to a breed of dog. So, for example, I'll use Minky. Minky is a Jindo, and in this post, the parent, the mom, is saying, when my dog, who's also a Jindo, is eating, sometimes they don't eat. Sometimes they'll leave. Sometimes they won't eat in the morning. Sometimes they may not eat at all. Sometimes they'll throw up. And so I wrote down there, and it's always really difficult to write things down because every time I step in, people are like, yeah, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. All the dogs he's working with are flukes. Okay, whatever. I would be dead if it was a fluke. So why was her dog not eating? Why was her dog not feeling comfortable? And I said, it's because if it's a psychological aspect of self-esteem. Actually, let me find this article here. Let me find this article here for you guys. Okay, so I'm just going to cover up here. So what it is here is at the top of the article. Let me just see here. Essentially what it is, I'll just get back to this thing here. Let me just pull this off this phone here, then I'll read it that way. I'm going to put this back in the right screen. Sorry, guys. I keep forgetting what's going on here. Okay, so what the post says is, and I'll kind of paraphrase, I've got a 4-year-old mix adopted 3 years ago, and excuse me, insanely picky with food. And, he tends not to be concentrated on one type of food. It tends to go and get disinterested, turn on to another piece of food, turn on to another kind of food, and go on. And let's see, tends to get tired of a specific brand of food before he even finishes it. So then have to switch to another one. It's probably hard on his stomach is what the speculation is. And sometimes they'll sprinkle some human food or other toppings that are attractive to their dog. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. They say that their dog is very wanting to eat, but not to eat dinner, but not interested in their breakfast unless there's some more human additives put onto it. And then the mom asked, does this happen to anybody else? And so first off the bat, we all think we're the only ones, right? We all think, okay, my dog's dangerous, but not as bad as, not as, my dog's worse than the other dogs. Or we take too much self-responsibility for things because we've been taught, we've learned in the general vernacular of dog behavior that a dog that's dangerous should be killed. Right, put down, that disgusting term of being put down or killed, behavioral euthanasia. And I was writing in one of my responses to this is that behavioral euthanasia is a contrived definition because we know what behavior is. It's the natural behavior of the dog. So we are going to kill a dog for being naturally behaving in an environment that's contrived as us, the human beings, or making our dog live in a domestic environment. But but these scientists and academics don't have the compassion to understand that the dog is like that, behaviorally, evolutionally, they're like that. So when a dog is angry or dangerous, they're behaving in a way, as I talked beforehand, about feeling safe. If they don't feel safe, what are they going to do? They're going to attack. How do they attack? Well, they can't go and articulate verbally. And if they don't feel that they can run away, if they feel that if they try to run away, that the target would come after them as well, all these things go through their heads. And that's that psychological profile where we get slivers of behavior. And then we get an enriched vision and feeling of what the dog's personality is like. So when I read people's posts like that, and you can see in my website where I read people's posts, and I destructure their dialectic, their cadence, their rhythm, the choice of words they use, how they use all kinds of grammatical and semantic structure. And within seconds, I can destructure it. You can check on my website, again, for screenshots of all this. It's not to be braggadocious. It's to prove that you can do it yourself when you look at a photo of someone else's dog, or when you decide to adopt a dog. You're going to look at 5 billion pictures of different dogs, and you want to help them all. But at the same time, you need one for yourself. So what do? You find that dog that when you look at that dog, all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, that's the dog. Look at the face. Oh, that's that emotional structure. Even though you've never met that dog, you're like, oh my gosh, look at the face. You start to fall in love, and you go, okay, oh, that dog looks kind of like this and this. And when you get your dog home, when you adopt him or her, and you bring her home, and you're like, oh, I knew that was like that. I could tell when I looked at the photo. That's what I do. So what you're doing isn't something that's like, oh, well, it's an intimate bond. What you're doing is applying predator instinct. You're destructuring behavior for things, and your comparative aspect in your mind of what you know from experiences with people and or dogs in the past. Right? If you've met somebody who has an angry face, it's because you've interacted with somebody who has an angry face. So that's an aggregation of all the experiences that create memory and consciousness. And again, sentience. So I'm going to try to make it in a point where if there's any questions, feel free to ask. If I can't answer it now, I'll try to answer it later. I want to make it where it's simple to understand. And it is kind of difficult because I'm pretty high functioning, unfortunately. To try to lower down and slower things down, it's kind of difficult. But it's understanding that structure, how dogs interpret what's going on. So when I had Lincoln, I'm watching his behavior 24/7. If I think Lincoln has a 1% chance of misbehaving, I will be 99% vigilant. It's my responsibility. So when it comes to this person's dog, the reason why they're not wanting to eat, generally speaking, and I have Minky, right? He's down here on the ground. Minky, see his ears perked up? He heard me. He didn't have to look up at me and go, hi, ma. He's just what? The ear perked up. Nonverbal communication. I'm going to get back to the other part. Nonverbal communication. The same thing when you're sitting there on your phone and your partner comes home, right? And they say, hi, honey. And you're like, you don't even have to say anything because you're right there. Like, oh, hey, okay, whatever. It's that complacency and comfort. The communication is not necessary for overt verbal, visual connection. So when we don't see what our dog is doing, and we don't understand the body behavior and physicality, and not able to communicate effectively in a reciprocal manner, what happens is your dog says, my human doesn't understand me. And if you've ever been in a relationship with somebody, that's David snoring. If you've ever been in a relationship where the person doesn't understand you, you get frustrated and you have a lack of confidence in the relationship. So your dog is processing, her dog is processing similar aspects of that, right? So I'm going in generalities, and then you guys can core down into more specific, to ascribe specific more conclusions on your own end. You want to use your intuitive behavior to figure out what I'm talking about by giving you examples around about, causing you to target more center, which is the same way how dogs process in regards to the predatorial format of visual processing. Right, the targeting, everything that's going on, looking for rhetorical and reciprocal behavior. So what we want our dog to understand, like that one there who is not eating, is that he is safe. For him not to be able to feel comfortable to eat, regardless if he's changing all kinds of foods and all that, it's more than the food. You've changed all these foods, you have not come upon the magical food formula that works, because it's coming back to a psychological issue. As I wrote back in one of the comments is, if I have a stressful day, I won't eat. If I'm worried about someone's dog, I won't eat. I forget about it. I worry, okay, I hope they don't kill their dog. Like 70% of the people call me either are told or will be killing their dog. They give up. So I get worried about it and I won't eat. Sometimes if I have other stressful situations or other considerations, I might not eat for a day or two. I'll forget, or I'm trying to deal with stuff. But emotionally, I don't feel satiated if I eat anyways. What is eating for? As a human, as an animal, as a dog, it's a satiate. It satiates, right? Makes us. What does it give your dog when he has something to eat? Joy, emotion, joy, rudimentary process, happiness, joy. So if I'm not feeling joyful and happy, I'm not going to eat. But I can also go, oh, I'm starving. I don't want to eat because I'm so stressed out. Your dog does not have the ability to articulate that. It's impossible for your dog to articulate that frustration. So what are they expecting us to do as their human parents? Non-verbally communicate and prove comprehension of what's going on. So then by going to our dogs, we then say to them, we understand why you're feeling scared or suffering or worried. All these dogs, right from the beginning, I work towards being able to give them a full body hug, including the predator dogs. And in the beginning, they'll come after me and try to attack me. And I build up trust. And I prove to them reliability and presumption of behavior and physical gait, predictive behavior as well is reliable for them. Then they go, okay, I can start trusting this guy, this human who I'm kidnapped, like a Stockholm syndrome, kidnapped in their home. They control everything that I do. Food, water, going outside, potty, petting, affection. They control everything. It's a Stockholm syndrome. So then your dog creates and develops a narrow envelope. And if we don't show them the context to expand out of that envelope, your dog becomes even further entrenched in a narrowing of their emotional envelope because their ability to experience outside of that, a more contextual experience of circumstantial experiences, what happens is your dog can no longer function because they go to, as I said in the beginning, core power. And if you think of a human being who cannot handle a situation of, for example, an introvert like myself going out into a public setting, I hate it. So what I'll do is I'll stick to the person that invited me. And if he or she leaves, I'm going, okay, I'm going. And then if I'm by myself and I don't see the person, I'll go home because I don't like being out in public with a bunch of people. With your dog is the same aspect of going, okay, I'm out here, I'm exposed. I'm in an uncommon environment that I don't feel safe. And you can say, oh, wow, my gosh, my dog is inside the house. Okay, I got to stop him. Sorry. Sorry. David, stop snoring. Okay, that's that 200-pound. That's David. He's 200 pounds. Sorry, guys. That's David. He's a 200-pound Great Dane that has bitten 16 people, just like Walter, who attacked 16 people viciously. David as well was on 750 milligrams of trazodone, 80 milligrams of Prozac for 2 years. All my dogs, any dog I intake, 0 medication. They weaned off. It does not matter. I want them off the medication so I can work with them naturally. Then I can read the behaviors naturally at real time. So we want to, getting back to that part about this post, is why would your dog not eat? Mickey himself won't eat sometimes. And in the beginning, he was cool. And he was okay. He went through all his issues and then got to the point where I could work with him and Mickey was all right. And then he stopped eating. And what happens is different dysfunctions, different traumas start to surface in your dog. Again, remember, if you don't know how to deal with something, you just layer it over and over and over. With your dog, if they don't know how to deal with something because they have not had the guidance to go through an experience, emotional experience, then they core down into the emergency functions of emotions. David, let me give him a pause. David, stop. Okay, so then they go down to the core emotions of behavior again, but everything that they experience gets layered on top of it, just like dirt on top of dirt on top of dirt on top of dirt. That's what trauma is. To say that it does not occur in a dog at a rudimentary format, I talk about that scalable, quantifiable. Okay, if it doesn't, it happens. It's impossible to say it does not happen for a dog because they have the same psychological mapping in the brain. Basic structure is there. Same thing with human beings. So we let them understand that they're safe. Um, so with this person's dog, right? And there's two things that end up happening. We either separate the dog from the other dogs, or if there's other dogs, we put them in a different room. We spend time with them and all that stuff, right? Because we innately know that, oh, they're scared. It's not that my dog's stupid, my dog's aggressive, my dog's dumb. We know parentally that our dog is scared. So that's why we say to them, we're here. That's why we put them in a different room. That's why we stand near them to keep them. And why? To make them feel safe, to make them feel that they're not lonely, that they're not by themselves and exposed. Because remember the other aspect of eating food. David, stop. Okay. He's so loud because he's 200 pounds. Because it goes down to the core aspect is if he's eating, he's exposed to potential danger in the wild, right? Right? If you're going after prey, the prey has not only, if you've captured it, well, if the animal has captured prey, the prey has exposed its scent, right? The blood is everywhere. It will attract other prey. That's why the pack of dogs or animals are around, making sure that nothing else comes around to attack. So when your dog is there eating food and is kind of scared, they're afraid of being attacked, not specifically, but in regards to a psychological process, there's a deeper dysfunction to that. To this person's dog is a deeper dysfunction. So we need to look into that part is not, oh, okay, is that possible? It is the point of it is possible at a diluted perspective. It's like somebody who has, and I'm not trying to be rude or anything, it's like somebody who has a cognitive dysfunction, developmental disability. They can still process things even if they can't comprehend the complexity of it. It's like an astrophysicist doing 1 + 1 + 1 = 3 for the rest of his life. He has the potential to get there. He just doesn't know how to get there without education. Your dog has the potential to understand their emotional envelope by us guiding them. And this goes back to the aspect of dogs understanding death. No, they don't. They cannot understand death as per se, as finality of behavior, because it is not a learned or teachable experience. Your dog doesn't go through multiple experiences of death. Your dog is not guided through the finality of that death, of that behavior. So your dog doesn't learn the process of it. So the abstract of death is there, but they don't understand the process, nor is there a catharsis that happens. All these things are the protection for your dog's behaviors, for them to understand, to guide them through things that are happening so they have context of what's going on. Is being alone eating, David, is being alone eating, normally, if he snores, normally it's like whatever. But yeah, so the context is, why is your dog's dysfunction there? It's not just like this, oh, well, they just don't like the food. If I ate cereal if I ate cornflakes every single day of my life, I would be eating the drywall. So we got to look at where these dysfunctions root from at the scale for dogs, because when you do that, then you're woke. Then you understand exactly that there is a comparative of a diluted scale of consciousness that your dog is experiencing, the psychology. That's being woke. That's thinking deep consciousness. That's talking about evolutional structure of psychology. That is creating the establishment of saying, oh my gosh, a dog does have a psychology, but it's kind of like a child and really diluted, like really watered down orange juice. Oh, now that makes sense why they can't understand why I stepped out of the room and they stopped eating now, because I would stay in the room with them all the time, and now I started to leave them, and now my dog is feeling abandoned. Now he doesn't want to eat because he wants you to be there. But then when he starts to eat and you're still there, but then you go off again or become distracted, then he goes, Mom's not paying attention to me anymore. I'm not safe. I'm eating and I'm not safe. So we want to get to those points of behavior, of the dysfunctions to the core, because it's truly evident. If not, I would not have been able to downtrain and stabilize Lincoln, David with his significant attack, Walter with his attacks where he literally dragged a human being in the shelter into his kennel to try to kill her. Nero, who was 10 years, 4 months, lived outdoors for his whole life. He was, oh man, he was really bad. He dragged a human being off of the foster's couch in Alabama onto the floor and attempted to kill her. And she was about a 250-pound woman. So these issues are quite significant. But to be able to destructure it means that it roots from a psychological level. So yes, you talk about the trainers and behaviorists out there and go, oh, and they got the certificates about behaviorism. But the real truth of the matter is the certificate will never help you with your dog. The certificate will never help that trainer with a dangerous dog. There's a certain level of comprehension, and then it becomes real time. Then it becomes the point of potential death to the trainer. That's where I step in, and that's where I openly bring in dogs here to do so, and they are significant, and they run the real threat of killing me constantly. And I worry if I can phone 911 if I'm not covered in blood. It's not an embellishment. You can look at everything. That's what it is. Is the truth of it is every dog can feel safe and be stabilized and know that they have someone, whether or not it's cross species, that they have someone, their parent, who can protect them in the most extremely dangerous issues. When I walk one of my dogs who has a significant issue with other dogs, if another dog comes running up to us, my dog, instead of attacking and literally killing the other dog because of their immense size, goes to the end of my lead behind me and literally waits for me to protect him. That's that structure of protection. That's that psychology of feeling safe, just like that child. It's impossible. See, you're not understanding that. The scientists, should I say, trainers and behaviorists, you need to understand that if you're going to bridge that idea that dogs are like children, then you've got to apply the rudimentary processing structure of logic and emotions through that child's eye and through the rudimentary processing of your dog, as well as relative in context to the scale of being a predator. Can't articulate, so I'm going to attack you. But that's why they growl at each other. So these are all behaviors we want to be able to let them know when we do fully rounding of taking care of them, just like you would a child. So when that person's dog is not eating and deciding aspects of it, it's because they don't feel safe mostly. If it was a point where she said he loved eating this food and then suddenly he just stopped eating it, but we switched and we found something else and he was good for a while, that's a different aspect. That's, as you're probably coming to that conclusion, wait, that means he does have some dysfunctions, but it hasn't happened yet. If you come to that conclusion, it means your dog woke. It means you're thinking deeper like 3D chess, because you're now extrapolating into potential causes for less overt issues. That's what we look at. It's like if your friend is having a problem, we contact them. They're like, well, something's wrong. Okay, well, let me talk to you. What's wrong? Explain to me. We work it out. We can articulate. Your dog can't. So what does your dog do? And her dog does is manifested in different ways of non-communicative signs. I don't eat because I don't feel safe right now. Protection. Your dog has that rudimentary processing. I don't feel safe. How are you going to protect me? So what a suggestion would be is to be close to your dog and not to be patronizing in interaction. You're just going to be standing close to your dog so that way they know you're safe, and you face outward. Don't face your dog, you face outward. So then what happens is you show your dog that you're protecting them from potential threats. And regardless if your dog is inside the home and there's no threats whatsoever, you start facing outward, you're going to let them know that the rest of the surroundings in the home, which your dog is not familiar with enough, is being protected by you standing guard. Just like father, daughter, mother, son protecting in a kind of controversial area or a bad neighborhood. That's what the same aspect when your dog understands. You can touch them every once in a while without petting them and overstimulating them, because your dog is reacting at 1/10 of a second to triggers. So you keep your hands still. Then you can feel how your dog breathes. You can feel the musculature structure. You can feel the tightness of the fur and the skin. You can feel the breathing pattern. You can feel the heart rate. You can feel if it's palpitating, if it is structured in an emotional stress or duress. And at the same time, by keeping your hands still, and I always give the dogs hugs, and I keep it solid without moving my hand, it allows them to feel whether or not I'm scared. So when I keep my hands still, my dogs feel, oh my gosh, this person, this human has my hand like a child walking a child across the street, a busy intersection. You hold their hand firm and they know they're safe. The same thing with my dog. So I keep it still. And so I can feel the breathing pattern. I can feel them holding their breath. I can feel them moving their body, everything. So I don't even have to do, that's nonverbal communication. It's like dancing with a partner. There's that beautiful melody that goes on. It's the same part with animals, that breathing, that pattern, that rhythm. It's our predator instinct that allows us to connect at that level and destructure psychology at that level, just the same way you would do with a human. So when we're holding them, we can feel the whole body moving. We can see their paw positions, all four paws. If they're staggered or somewhat contrived, we can tell whether or not our dog, is feeling comfortable by looking down visually and seeing the paw patterns, seeing the body structure, seeing if they're looking around all the time. These are the aspects of creating familial trust, parental care for your dog. So those are the things that he needs, is just keeping your hand still. Then you can feel his breathing pattern. He'll flinch because he's not used to the intimacy of that type of affection, because we pet our dogs like as if we're trying to catch them on fire. Oh, yeah. Good boy. Right? You watch that. But watch where your dog is most affectionate is when he's just laying on the couch with you. You got your hand on him. And you're just every once in a while gently rubbing, and he'll sleep for 20 hours if he could. There's that trust issue. Just like the child is going to sleep at night, you're going to hold your hand on their back a little bit while they fall asleep. It's a trust issue. It's letting them understand that they're safe and they're not abandoned. So when they're eating and they're not eating and changing behavior, is because every time food changes, it creates a different solicitation in their mind. Oh, I got new attention again because my mom spends time with me again. So you see, it's cyclic. It's cyclic, goes on and on to a vicious cycle, to the dysfunction, gets to the point where your dog won't go outside properly to go to the bathroom and has issues in regards to smelling things, because then the dysfunction becomes even more complex as you add on more environments that your dog is no longer able to function in, because now they've created a tank. They've created a psychological tank. And the only people that are allowed in their psychological tank is those that they trust: mom, dad, family. So these are all the aspects that you can address really quite simply. And when you destructure everything that's going on, what I've just said, it all makes sense. That's the depth of our comprehension that we all have, not just me. We all have it. And you can learn it yourself. You can. I have clients on the East Coast. I've worked with CEOs of multinationals. I've worked with very well-known people. But the thing is that everybody can learn it. So from this top at the end, where these people are just focused on, billions of dollars, to right at the me and you scale, where it's like, man, I hope I can afford, a nice meal next month, right? Because of COVID. It all works. It's all learnable. It's all teachable. It's not that complicated. I get people look at it. Oh, what's he doing? Because they're too slow to understand. It's not an insult. They really are too slow. But a lot of you who have intuition, you pick up what I'm talking about because intuitively you've done it yourself with children. Well, just bridge it over to humans on a diluted scale, as if it's 20 cans of water with 1 can of orange juice. And then you go, oh, that makes sense. So that's why my dog won't go outside. It's because maybe it's a more simple matter of they want us to join them, because we usually go outside with them for a walk. And today, right now, they're feeling happy. Let's try that and let's experiment to see if that works. Okay, I go outside. All right, he does. And then we work it from that point of what causes that reluctance for him to go outside after that, by getting him outside, letting him know he's safe outside, etc. Same thing with this person's dog. Is they're eating, we let them feel safe, we're near them. There's different things that I can suggest as well that would just bang on be accurate. But again, I'm giving generalities of that. If you are watching this, you're welcome to contact me and I'll give you a free consult on that. How's that? But it comes down to the point of letting them feel safe, letting them know, your dog know that you're there. Your dysfunctional dog that is having severe trauma and does not know how to articulate. So we see them just acting normally, but we know there's something up. We guide them through. We show them how to destructure. What we basically do is we show them how to go through that experience. It's like if you were to bungee jump for the first time, extremely scary, but then the second time you're like, yeah, I've been there. The thrill is there, but I don't know what to do, because you've been able to process that experience by yourself. With your dog, they don't have the capacity because they don't have the history They don't have the experiences, the sum of their experiences to process through a new experience because their emotional envelope is so narrowed. So when you give your dog time and affection, all those things, you will give them the opportunity, understanding that they're feeling safe. Okay, so I'm going to go on to this thing here, the psychological importance of using your dog's name. So I'm just going to have a sip here. Okay, so I'm going to go through this. This is on my website, and actually, I'm going to go through this thing, acknowledging your dog's boredom. This article I wrote last year during COVID, and I had the assistance. Somebody who I've said in the description. She's a founder of Social Espionage. She's worked with Oprah Winfrey. She has worked with Ryan Seacrest Productions. She has worked with SCOTUS, which is the Supreme Court of the United States. There's photos of her with Robert Mueller and all these other people. She's quite highly evolved, and she lives in Atlanta. So Dorothea gave me a hand on this one here in regards to just kind of proofreading it, so it wasn't too much information for everybody. And I'm just going to switch up to what's your dog's name and why this is important. And this is, so she helped me get all this kind of here even, and I'll explain to you the importance of your dog's name. It's egocentric. Our name is egocentric, yet the application of our name is almost always derived from somebody else. I don't use my name unless I'm introducing myself, and that doesn't happen all the time. So we use other people's names. We create an emotional enfranchisement, right? We create that sense of individuality for your dog. When we use our dog's name in a regular tone of voice, we teach our dog to understand who they are. We teach our dog to have a sense of self, again, at that rudimentary processing, right? At that diluted scale of comprehension of consciousness. So then we teach them who they are by saying their name in a regular voice. When we use a fake or contrived high-pitched voice that's fake, your dog immediately knows you're faking the voice. And then they become disinterested in a cognitive process in the sense of, well, my human's being disingenuous. So we have proof of point, two analogies. One is if you talk like that to a child, like, hi, Lily, the 2-year-old child is going to look at you and say, don't talk to me like a baby. Even though the child knows everyone knows the child's a baby, but your child has the egocentric cognizance to have a relatable opposition to that statement, of that behavior of why you treating me like a baby. The next human analogy is if I was to go up and meet somebody, like a group of people, like Peter, Paul, and Mary, the band from the 70s, Peter, Paul, and Mary. So if I want to, hi, Peter, how are you? Right? Hey, how's it going, Peter? How are you doing? Hi, Paul, how's it going? Nice to meet you. Hi, Mary, how are you? How is it going? So then I become patronizing and disingenuous. Your dog does pick that up. To think your dog doesn't pick it up means you're not dog woke. It means you're not looking at the depth of that comprehension, of that structure of behavior, of communication between. Your dog goes, in their mind, this person is talking to my human normally, and to me, not normally. It's not a fully fleshed out process. It is the abstract concept of it, right? That's what I'm talking about. You can't go and say, well, the dog has to make overt behaviors. Then that becomes an arrogant human statement saying, well, the dog must perform to my standard of conscious behavior. Otherwise, the dog is not conscious. And therein lies the rub, as Shakespeare would say, with academia, is creating that structure that the dog must conform to, right, for milestones, that kind of stuff, versus understanding what the dog is doing and then generating comprehension from the basis, the aggregation of behaviors, right? What is consciousness? It's essentially the ghost in the machine, the humming of everything. So using your dog's name is super duper important. Not just the ego behavior, it creates communication. You can infer so much tone and intent in the way you say your dog's name. Another human analogy in regards to the essentials of saying your dog's name in a regular voice. because your dog is paying attention at 1/10 of a second to everything, right? David. He knows his name. And of course, it's loud, right? Your dog is processing triggers, everything at 1/10 of a second, right? Predator instinct behavior, right? They're so fast they can snap a treat out of midair. So what ends up happening is he's processing everything that you're saying as well, because you're nonverbal. I mean, he's nonverbal, so he's hearing everything that you're saying. And if it becomes a bunch of goobly goop. So when I work with my dogs, I keep a very minimal amount of conversation with them until I can create familiar context of what's going on. Actually, I'm going to show you one of Anthony, where I taught him how to understand the phrase can of tuna, the objectification of the phrase can of tuna. And he learned it in about 25 minutes, because I understood how to look at his cues. And in the beginning, you'll see him, it'll be hard on here, but you see him in the beginning where he looks at it with his eyes as he glanced to it. When I refer to the phrase can of tuna, I say it another time, as he's kind of up a bit and he looks behind him, and his look behind him, if you watch the physicality, is the same kind of self-doubt cogency that is exhibited by primates and human beings in our own behavior of self-doubt, like that. And then finally, towards the end of that 60-second bit, you'll see where Anthony, as he sits up on his hind legs, as I say can of tuna and I tell him about it, he looks down at the can of tuna constantly. And you can see again primate cogency of structure, that comprehension. So that's that part that we want to do that's kind of important as well. And I'll do that at the end. So I'll finish this one off here about using your dog's name. And next week I'll get into a little bit more. And I'm going to try to create a bit more course structure to all this stuff. Okay, so point number one is if your dog is laying beside you, right? So if your dog is laying beside you, so we're just going to do that point here. Let me just kind of highlight this. Never works. Okay. There you go. Almost had it. All right. There we go. So if your dog is laying beside you, or you go and sit beside your dog, say their name in an even tone. So that goes back to what I've been saying from day one. And it again is if you say it in an even tone, it teaches your own vocal cords to train, right? So then you have an even tone of voice. For example, if you see somebody yelling at their dog in the dog park for whatever reason, you can hear the voice just straining like crazy. It's the same aspect. If we keep it an even tone, we create a musculature structure. So then it becomes a tuned instrument so that when we do talk to our dog, we're not showing fear, stress, inconsistency, indecisiveness. We're showing calm parental control and care, right? We're protecting them. And we can use a soft, calm voice at all times because we've trained our vocal cords in an even tone. We're talking normally in the same normal voice we talk to people, so it's not that much of a stretch. So we're using we're using literally tools. I'm using tools that are already existing that you don't need medication or treats or anything for. No dog that I've ever worked with has needed medication or treats because I spend a lot of time with them. And I am very intense in destructuring their nuanced behaviors, especially since my life depends on it. Okay, number two, it's extremely important to say their name in a slow, measured pace without too much inflection. Because again, right, you can hear, right? Because this reduces the extraneous range and tonal points of your voice. Again, when the muscles in your vocal cords are practiced, right? You see singers warming up, that same part of it. When you're about to talk to your boss on the phone, you're like, right? It's the same aspect of preparation and behavior of control. It's a predator behavior. It really, truly is a predator behavior that we have because it's, again, I talked earlier about when I'm giving a dangerous dog a hug. Once we get to that trust point, I can feel them breathing or holding their breath. These are conscious behaviors. So when we keep our voice in a regular, reliable tone, your dog goes, oh, cool, right on. And the human analogy is if you're having a bad day and really stressed out at work, who are you going to phone? The person that's going to talk you off the ledge or the person that tells you, go quit. They don't deserve you. Find yourself another job somewhere else. Oh, quit. You're going to talk to the person that has reason that you can rely on. If you have a tough day with your partner, you're going to phone your mom or dad and say, hey, you know what? Oh, we just broke up. It's reliability, because what you hear is that voice, that familial voice that you can always rely on. That's what we create for our dogs. Right? You see wolves in the wild, one, and they all have gone off except one stays at the home base, and that one wolf howls, right? And only one wolf runs back because of the name. We are arrogant to think that when we talk to our dogs that they don't understand their name. It's the tone, it's the way we say it. Since they're processing so quickly, they can tell. For example, when you were a kid and your dad called out your name, you could tell if you're going for ice cream or you're going to get grounded forever. One syllable, it'd be like, Jack, and you're like, oh, exactly the same way with your dogs. They're picking it up that quick. And because they're processed exactly what we've said already before we've even finished saying their name. That's how quick they are. That's the psychology that gets left to the wayside because they're behaving in an evolutionary predatory structure. And then they rely on the emotional process to put context to what happens, AKA consciousness. And then they go, okay, this is what's happening. So if they hear an even tone, they're like, okay, that's cool. It might be heightened, but it's cool. And it's practice forever. I'm going to actually probably, I'm going to end this up soon because I think I'm going way over time. Almost. Okay, so I got 10 more minutes. All right. Hopefully people are enjoying this. I'm not. If you have any questions, whatever, let me know. Also, I'm really interested in doing a live video session with one of my followers. So feel free to email me, James at arfarfbarkbark. And if it works out, if you're cool with it, do a live video session, and I'll destructure physical behavior of your dogs in real time, remotely, and I'll put proof to everything that I say of how good I am. Right? When someone says that they're the best dog trainer in the world, they got to be able to prove it. When someone says they understand dog psychology to the profound level of evolutionary structure, I got to prove it, right? So absolutely, my invitation, bring somebody in and I'll do the live video. If you have issues with your dogs and dysfunctions, you just basically get yourself a free session. All right, point number 3, making eye contact as you say your dog's name. So I talked about eye contact before, saying it's not consequential, but when you're saying your dog's name, it is. Because it means something when you say it in that way. Have you ever said, human analogy-wise, have you ever said someone's name with love? You see your eyes and their eyes, and they're like, oh my gosh, right? We create that codependency. That's a healthy codependency. So I'm obviously I'm quite romantic about things because I see the way psychology is codependency and how amazing it is to be in love. Your dog feels that same way too. Acts of love, right? The love languages for your dog is the same aspect. We do acts of love for our dogs by service, right? Feed them, pick up their poo. I'm doing like 3-4 bags a day with these guys. They eat. I just got in 400 pounds yesterday of raw. I don't eat meat, but I do what my dogs deserve. They live longer, all these things. And of course, is my structure here. But okay, you want to use your dog's name just because it allows them to understand who they are. And when we say it with a regular voice, you're going to see your dog looking at you like, first off, it's like, what are you doing? And they're going to go crazy because like, you're talking in a normal voice to me. That's the comprehension. Because your dog will not understand it, but they'll put 2 and 2 together way farther back, and then we help them structure it all together into a cohesive structure, right? So in the back, they're like, I don't know, kind of like that, like what? Something's going on. There's a disturbance in the force. So what happens is your dog goes, okay, and then we keep making the correlation between saying their name and looking at them. And we don't look at them like, make it. And we don't look at them as if you have to look back at me. We look at them like, hey, how's it going? We just say, I'm going to use a different name. I'm going to use a fake name. I'm going to just say like Zevia. And then if she looks at me, good girl. If she doesn't look at me, so what? Because she's already heard me. Just like opening that snack bag in the middle of the night. Your dog comes running to you and you're like, you were asleep 0.5 of a second ago. It's the same part. So we want to do that. And then number 4 is place. Oh, what is going on here? Okay. I almost got it. Number 4 is place your hand, flat palm, fingers together. And with dogs with vision impairment, right, you'll put it on the lower spine a little bit because then it creates a different comfort position for them and a different comprehension position, because then we do something that is stimulating a blind and or deaf dog's cognitive abilities to process different stimulation that is not naturally being exhibited by their humans. So then we create a structure, because then when we create a fresh playground, right, to learn from, then your dog gets that new experience, and we create the experience from a fresh perspective with love to begin with, right? That affection, intimacy of affection, love to begin with. So then that way, what happens? Positive experience is already established. We've created the foundation. Here's family. I'm just going to touch you, make you feel comfortable. You keep your fingers together, because if you spread them apart, further stimulation, too much. Keep it together. Your dog only has to concentrate on one part. Why the Thunder shirt works, I'm going to explain, because they don't even know. I've looked on their website. We don't know, but it works. I'm like, wow, you sell a product you don't have a comprehension of. I will explain why. Generally speaking, and you can look at videos. I have dogs like Minky. Fireworks are going off literally almost next door. He's just like, whatever. I'm able to talk them down by creating that point of addressing stimulation by allowing the dog to cognitively process what's going on. In other words, to think about, okay, I hear it, but I'm kind of getting wait, my human has got a calm voice and no one's panicking, and they're reassuring me and they're touching me calmly and not stimulating me and trying to convince me I'm okay. Oh yeah, you're okay, right? So keeping the hand calm. What happens is when you keep the fingers together, no stimulation, hands flat, not squeezed, just relax as if you were to put your hand on your partner's back. And that's it. You gently put it on. It's reassurance. It's being there. It's like watching, human analogy, it's like watching the sunset. You don't want your partner to, right? Like women always, don't talk so much, right? Like, no, I mean, not like that, but right? They're always telling men, don't talk so much, or right? Just enjoy the silence. Watch the sunset, because you're not going anywhere. What is your task? Is to watch the sunset. 20, 30 minutes, 2 hours, watch the sunset. You're enjoying it. For your dog, absolutely, they crave affection, right? They crave that intimacy. They crave trust, that familial structure emotionally. So when you're keeping your hand flat, just like I said, they could lay with you for 20,000 hours. It's that trust. So when you do the same part, you say their name, you touch them with the flatness of your palm, it keeps them calm. When it comes to the Thunder shirt, it's a flinch response, the hypersensitivity, it's a cognitive processing. Every dog is different, and it's a way to address that for every single dog without needing a Thunder shirt. Because I've worked with all of them that get freaked out from the predators to the skittish dogs to the meat dogs like Minky, who lived in a cage for a year and a half. They can all be stabilized if you're patient, and it'll cost you nothing. All of this is free through these live vlogs. I'm leaving it out there. All right. So when you put your hand flat on your dog, you're going to just kind of keep it there. When it comes to the dogs that have vision issues, you're just going to do a little bit of a slight movement on your hand just to create stimulation. Just a slight stimulation, not too much, not to get them active and energetic, just to give them that impression like, I'm here for you, right? And you do it really, really slowly. And a lot of people have a problem trying to move their hands even slowly. When they start moving their hand like this, because we're not able to. And why do we do that? Nervousness and insecurity of being able to communicate with our dog, because we're not supposed to be this kind of intimate with our dog. We're like this with our girlfriend or boyfriend, right? We're like that, right? Okay, honey. And that's why we create that disconnect with our dog. Then we devalue the relationship by saying an intimate act of affection, which is, again, a very strong familial bond, is not there. So then we lose that tightness of bond. We lose that familial structure. And then your dog feels it like, I'm almost with you, but there's something missing. So then we create that. We close the loop. We finish the structure of that relationship by touching your dog and saying their name. And then they feel like, oh, wow, that's nice. And the best human analogy I can give is, remember when you were a kid and you're doing your homework in the kitchen and you're just silent. And you're like trying to talk to your mom, and you're like, and she's like, do your homework. And then as you're doing your homework, you're like, oh man, my mom's angry at me now and everything like that. And I've got to do my homework and I'm struggling. And then your mom walks up to you without saying a word and just puts her hand on your shoulder and walks away. Do you remember how much you felt that your mom truly loved you? It's the same thing when you touch your dog like that. And we feel uncomfortable displaying that type of affection to our dog because we don't think that our dog can comprehend it. And I am telling you, absolutely 100% guaranteed that your dog fully comprehends that in the emotional structure, the psychology of it, and the physical protection. It's like holding hands crossing the street. It's like your child having a nightmare and you run into the room and they're crying. And what do? You hold them, right? You're holding them. And as you're holding them, if you start doing this, what is your child going to do? Stop moving your hand. You're overstimulating me. Ergo for dogs. And that's because we don't see dogs in the ability to process because we don't think in their diluted perspective. And that's why they can't quantify sentience or consciousness. Okay, so number 5, right? Going back to don't move your hand, keep it completely still. And you want to keep your hand completely still. Again, lack of stimulation. Then your dog doesn't have to get panicked. And that skill that you're doing here transfers outdoors or transfers when he's eating and not eating food. This is the core, is a physical affection that implies full trust and protection. If I'm walking down the street and some guy comes up to me and gives me a hug, I'm going to say, dude, no, right? But I'm going to say other things too, but I don't know who the heck you are. But if I was to walk down the street and I see a friend of mine from high school, right? I'm not going to tell you how many decades ago, but I'm going to be like, oh man, how's it going? I'm going to give him a hug. Dude, what have you been doing, right? You're going to act all manly, but my emotions are going to be quite, profusive internally, emotionally, because I trust him enough to give this man a hug in that sense of, I know you. So the same thing when it comes to your dog is to be able to do that. When you're giving them a hold, you're touching them, keeping the stillness is going to help them understand. And by letting them trust you, by familiarity of you always doing it, then they go, oh, where's my hug, Mom? It's all these aspects here. As number 6, we're going to go to, I'm trying to get this before I got 11 here. Okay. Gently and slowly remove your hand by lifting straight up as you simultaneously say their name with a slight quickness in tone and pace. So when your hand is down on your dog, right, all you're going to do is when you slowly move it up, because you don't want to move it abruptly. If you move it up abruptly, then your dog's like, something's wrong, right? Logic. It's not anything special, right? We think about these things how we would do it. So we move our hand up and we say their name for 2 reasons. One is to make them aware that we are shifting our physical relationship with them. And 2, to reinforce and to finish the loop of Zevia. And then when I finish after 1 minute or 20 minutes, Zevia. I let them know what I'm doing and I finish the contact physicality, which is psychologically how we learn. So that's doing it with dogs at that rudimentary scale. How did you teach your child to learn their name? By saying it, not repetitively, in context and environments. Don't actively engage with them, but do maintain eye contact. And you want to maintain eye contact as you pull away, because then what you're inferring and implying to them, to your dog, is I'm still watching you. Not in a bad way. I'm still watching you, making sure you're safe as you're sleeping and feeling raw and open. I'm going to protect you. I'm watching out as I step away from you. And then your dog goes, oh, cool. Eye contact still. I don't have to worry about my human watching out for me because every time I look up, they're looking at me anyways. And they're not trying to engage with me. So I get to acknowledge the fact that they're watching me. Just like a child on the playground, human analogy, child on the playground, and they're running around, mommy, look at me. But if you say every once in a while, as they're running around, honey, John, what happens? Your child doesn't keep asking you. They're like, oh, can you just stop? I'm with my other 5-year-old friends. All right. You're just totally embarrassing me, man. It's that context, right? So then we let them understand the eye contact. So then we teach them again, we're there for you. We're there for you. We're watching out for you. I do that with all my dogs. When they go poo, I'll either face them and look around, or else I'll face the other direction, like I was talking about feeding food, and I'll face the other direction and look around. Because I'm saying to them, while you're raw and exposed going poo, where you could be attacked, because they're physically compromised as well. They're either on 3 legs or squatting. They're compromised physically, which in their mind is already a 3 to 5 to 6 tenths of a second reactive delay in reacting to any potential threats, right? If we are about to get into a fight with somebody, the last thing we're going to do is sit down. We're going to be up on our feet, getting ready that we don't get sucker punched in the face, or my, and my friends are bad. So that's the situation we want them to understand. Okay. Number 8, watch and evaluate your dog's reaction and repeat this exercise when you intuitively feel the timing is right. So you want to do that in the point where you're just observing. You're just watching reaction. In other words, you have a natural, not a contrived environment where you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to practice, because your dog's naturally with you anyways. So what you're doing is you're taking advantage of passive aggressively, so to speak, of an existing opportunity, an existing training platform that's been in front of you your entire lives. Be dog woke. It's there. So your dog is there. Perfect opportunity to train them to know their name. So then what you do is when you pull your hand away and you touch them, since it's an entirely controlled environment, but your dog thinks it's natural, so he's going to behave naturally. But you're watching like a predator. Don't ever discount the fact that everyone is a predator. It's in our DNA. So we are observing. That's where the parenting comes from. Why do we parent our child? To protect them from being killed. Predator behavior on our end is where parental aspects come in. And you all know, if somebody bugs mama bear with her kid, they're going to be dead, right? That kind of behavior, this predatory behavior, roots into that parental aspect of taking care of your dog on that psychological process. So you do that all the time, and you want to watch the reaction, so that way you're like, oh, cool, I saw them do that. So that way when you do it the next time, you're like, are they going to do it the way they did it the first 20,000 times? And then we create comparatives, because then we build up our own library of experiences of the same circumstance. We get to watch the same motion all the time, touching our dog. They are loving it. They don't know we're training them. They don't realize we're training them. They're not contrived. They're not waiting for a treat. They're just naturally there going, oh my gosh, it's affection. And what do? You touch him and you say Zevia. You say their name, right? I'm going to say Zevia. You say Zevia. I say Zevia, right? And then what I do is I further out on that benefit of training, because it's passive, right? They're there. It's all there. Every once in a while, I'll say, Zevia, come here. Recall command. All these aspects I apply during that time randomly, not frequently, but within context and relative to the entire comprehension structure of each particular dog and the group setting. So I've gone down to shelters where there's a bunch of dogs at once and been able to identify specific personality traits that are causing dysfunctions within the whole group itself. It's not magic, because you do it yourselves with your friends. You're in a group of friends. You know how to manage the crazy one. You know how to manage the cool one. And you know who to hang out with is the cool one. Whatever. I mean, that's the same structure. So you want to be able to watch what's going on from how you've learned how to manage people. So you watch your dog. It's not a control. It's a natural. It's an incredibly, stupidly natural position of training. Teaching your dog their name and giving them this incredible familial affection where they go, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Oh, I love this. They're loving me. And where at the same time, again, you're learning how to read and compare everything in your mind on an analytical structure. That's that predator I'm talking about. We all have in there. You got to watch CEOs and the icons of the industry and the people. Right? Okay. So I've interacted with them. They're predators. Elon Musk, Oprah Winfrey, Bruce Lee, they're all predators. So when it comes down to, and we, like I said, mama bear, papa bear, all that stuff. So you want to do that cycle. Number 9, do this very simple exercise for a minimum of 2 minutes to a maximum of 8 minutes. And why? Because then you start to create a full impression, and you also train yourself to be patient. Often people will say, yeah, I'm touching my dog. And I'll say, okay, well, then let's stand here. And you just hold your dog for 7 to 12 seconds. And this is what they'll do. They'll go. So what was that about? 7 seconds? And it'd be like, no, and they know it's not 7 seconds. Insecurity on the human side of things. We're not confident enough in the way we touch our dog because we don't know if our dog's going to attack us or run away from us. We don't know because we don't trust our dog to be there for us to hold this affection. So they run away. They move away. We go, oh, okay, I'm going to move my hand before my dog leaves so it doesn't look like I failed. A whole bunch of human psychology that goes on. It's so deep in regards to human behavior as well that's interchanging and interdependent with animals. So again, repeat the exercise. It's free. This is costing you nothing. And this is a foundational thing I use with every single dog, including Walter from the newspaper coverages and all that stuff, to the TV segments and all that stuff. Nothing is BS on my end. It's all the exact same application of basic behaviors that is learnable, teachable, and cost you nothing. Just watch the thing and you'll see. We got to save dogs. And I sound like Christopher Walken. There's literally over 100 million dogs living in domesticated homes in North America. There's about 65 million homes housing over 100 million dogs. Adoptions and families and all that stuff. And there's about 6 million dogs being killed for simple behavioral issues. To me, simple behavioral issues that can be addressed. I mean, all the dogs are simple issues to me. All the dogs are simple issues. But you can learn, right? You see what I'm talking about. All this stuff is making sense. Okay, so number 10, for dogs with vision and or hearing impairment, instead of removing your hand from their spine, slide it slowly toward the top of their head and then remove your hand. And so that's why I said in the beginning is you create a different establishment, a foundation, different area of stimulation. And then when you move it upwards towards your dog's head, then you're finishing off that structure of behavior that you normally do with your dog anyways, which is pet your dog's head. Your blind dog, your hearing impaired, and I've had dogs that are that, right? Those disabilities, right? You bring it back because we always pet our dog's head or we pat them on the back. And with a blind dog, we feel like we got to keep touching them. And every once in a while, only reason we touch their body is to remind them to move somewhere or we're behind them. But there's no emotional relationship in regards to the physicality with the blind or deaf dog. So then when we take the spine and we move it up gently to the top of the head, we fill your dog's ability to feel trust from the spine of whatever position you're at to the top of the head. Then we give them that psychological management where they feel that their whole body is now being aware of and being protected. And then we move towards the aspects of being able to give a dog, a blind and deaf dog, a hug. There's structures where you can help a dog that has that's blind to let them not feel so threatened in new places. Really simple tools to bring with you that I'll get to that in another thing. I'm also going to try to do some videos. I'm going to start writing this out on how to do emotionally, physical, cognitive exercises with your dog to create stimulation so they start developing cogency. In other words, to do certain physical, exercises with your dog where they go, oh, this is weird, which is to cause them to start thinking emotionally like this is not a normal thing. Then you create an autonomy of thought, right? Because they're like, oh, this is weird. And then we create cogency in your dog and we create a stronger emotional level of intelligence in your dog. So that's me. They're going again. So with the blind and hearing impaired, you want to kind of do that. So you finish that part where they're normally used to you touching them, but instead you're finishing the whole structure of physicality and protection. So one day I'll get into that a bit longer if I have enough demand for it. Number 11, remember there's no urgency. So in an 8-minute period, you should not exceed 12 cycles, right? So again, that's talking about the timing and being patient and putting your hand on your dog, not for 3 seconds instead of 12 seconds. You got to remember too, time is an abstract function for your dog. So people are like, oh, how does a dog process time? Well, I'll explain it. Dog processes time as an abstract structure. It's just like, and I'll put it in a human analogy and I can get into a deeper structure later on. It's like a slideshow projector. Remember in the 70s, 80s, they had the slideshow projectors. You had different photos occurring in, you could have 10 photos and they could span from today, last week, 500 years ago, back to 5 minutes ago. abstract memory construction. Then we look at the aspect of how the dog processes that fundamental of an abstract of time passage. So then that means that the dog has the ability to learn the context phrasing of stop, wait, and stay. We can teach a dog stay, but we can teach a dog an intelligent way to stay by being cogent of what it actually means contextually. And I'll get to the Anthony video in a bit. I'll just have to find it. So you don't want to go over the cycle too many times. If you do go over the cycle too many times, then what ends up happening is you create a structure for your dog where that there's David, right? Where you create a structure for your dog where they don't understand what's going on. We want them to understand what's going on by slowly guiding them through, because again, everything is a new emotional experience. It's kind of like you walking to a brand new house and someone said, this is yours. You're like, what? Same thing. Your dog doesn't have the ability to comprehend that. For us, we're like, okay, this is the brand new house, right on, it's mine. For your dog, it's like, help. And non-verbally, they start stiffening up and they're like, and they start going around in circles and they start turning backwards and they start going sideways because they don't know how to process. And they're saying to you, you're supposed to tell me what is wrong because you've always told me what's wrong before. You feed me, you love me, you take care of me. And those times when I feel sad or scared, you've given me affection. And then when it doesn't happen, your dog starts to have some developmental aspects of that psychosis, of that dysfunction, starts manifesting it because it has to exhaust somewhere. Your dog can't hold it in. Otherwise, if they all could hold it in, they wouldn't be attacking other dogs or people. So again, they can't self-regulate and they blow it out. But they start telling you by behavioral traits of adjustments that are not normal from what they normally do. Okay, so okay, this one is funny. This is David. You can see how big David is. Right, and that's him back then. But I'm going to get the one for Anthony, and then I'll close this off. So this is teaching Anthony can of tuna, and I talk about that in regards to objectification of that phrasing. So what it is to be able to teach Anthony can of tuna is by teaching him context and using tone. It's the exact same way we teach somebody language. If you look at ESL teachers, how do they teach people words, especially emotive words? Happy, they don't say happy, they say happy. Sad, sad. They show it. So then we create an objectification in the context with dogs. The comprehension is quite deep, but it can be done. And you'll probably seen that silly videos of that one dog, What About Bunny, who's like pressing buttons and creating structured language. It's a stupid pet trick. It's a performative structure that the human being, her human, has created trait behaviors. You can hear her voice. She's actually cutting off her dog before her dog can make fully formed decisions. Additionally, these are electronic voices in her name, whatever. You need to use a natural sound central speaker. And you need to keep all the same colors or gradient of color so your dog has a structure. Because what's happening is when you use multiple colors, you're cheating your dog into being able to talk. If she was to put all the same colors but different words, that's when What About Bunny would be an actual cogent dog. So right now, everyone's being bamboozled by this circus trick. Scientists, they've got linguistics, animal behaviors studying bunny. And I'm like, that's how dumb these people are. Because at the top of this conversation of my live vlog, it's contrived. It's creating a contrived environment. We are inviting the dog to make behaviors because they're paying attention to us at less than 1/10 of a second in our own behaviors. The color-coded buttons, even a child would say to you, that's stupid. David? So we want to get structure on this part, right? So we're going to get to one where Mr. Anthony, there it is. Okay, so here it is. Just like the. Okay, so this is can of tuna. All right, so I can't actually see over there, so I'm going to try to pretend that I'm seeing here. But you see the can of tuna. So that's a large can of tuna. Anthony is about 170 pounds. Significant issues, of course, attacking other dogs and significant prey drive. He was brought up here emergency from California overnight. So from another rescue. Okay, so we see him. Okay, so you see, I don't know if you can see his eyes. You could. I'll put the link after this once it starts processing. I'll put the link on it, or you can check out my TikTok, David. Okay, so what's going to happen is you see him looking down at the beginning there, and I'm just going to let it run through, and I'll let it run through a second time and narrate it. Okay. The dog can hear the sound of prey and always remember the sound of prey after that, because there's an emotional contextualization to that sound. That's prey. It's something I want to kill. So the same thing with that thing right here. Anthony, where's a can of tuna? You see the blink? Can of tuna. Anthony, can of tuna. Can of tuna. Can of tuna. Good boy, Anthony. Good boy. Can of tuna. Good boy. Good boy, Anthony. He's going to ask, just like the. Okay, so you see that part of the process. That's within 60 seconds. So the structure of teaching dogs contextually can happen. To teach a dog how to structure sentencing can happen. Just what about Bunny has no idea what she's doing because she's created a circus trick. And unfortunately, the scientists believe it. And it is point, as I said before, the humans are creating contrived tests, contrived circumstances, right? The color-coded buttons and the unnatural sounds and the human, the mom inviting Bunny to do things. It's contrived. It's all fake. 5 million, 7 million followers think it's real. I know it's not real. I know it's for performative. We want a dog to have context of comprehension. It's a smarter dog that becomes cogent. A dog that does these performative circus tricks will not have a complexity. She doesn't have an understanding or comprehension of Bunny's tail behavior. She can't understand how Bunny's actually struggling and then relying on her human to tell her what to say. If you watch the stability of her tail behavior as it goes sideways, one way primarily, it's a confusion of an inability to process either on a cognitive or a fantastical construction. And that's the bad thing, because that destroys true research and comprehension of what's actually going on when you have charlatans that present things that completely retard advancement in academia, and then you have the silly academics going, oh, it must be real, because now you've created a contrived environment and project that I can recreate as well. Instead of going, what is the dog doing and where is the sentient relations of that, and building it from the ground up as a solid foundation versus coming from the human arrogance of, if you don't perform, then I guess you're a failure as an animal of sentience. All right, so go on this part before I finish it off. So I'm just going to, David. Rah. All right. He's so loud sometimes, but it's so cute. I'm just trying to concentrate here. Okay. So I'm going to let it off here, and I'll do the commentary throughout. And if you guys ever have a video that you want me to review, let me know, and I'll review it, obviously. Dog can hear the sound of prey and always remember the sound of prey after that. Okay. So what I predicate on teaching dogs language, etc., is to create certain tones in regards to what I call voice key. There's certain tones that are familiarly structured that your dog goes, oh, cool, that's what my family sounds like, right? The howling of that wolf at the one base camp, phoning your mom up because you needed help for something as an adult. Those are the aspects. So we create that part. You got the prey and predatorial aspects of drive. We make adjustments in the way we tone, inflect, cadence, rhythm, how we structure that, how we say it to our dog. Because what is language is all sound. We can teach a dog in any language. We can make up languages like Klingon. So the structure then means, how do we adjust our tone to what? to infer otherwise our intent. So when I talk about predator and prey drive, talk about watching our dog for how they behave when we play, for example, fetch, etc. We watch their behavior, how they respond to, I watch their behavior, how they respond to my language, my tone, and then I pick up the tones and the cues, and then I start applying that in context form when I start teaching dogs contextual words. I'll show you another video of teaching Anthony how to slow down, literally by saying it to him, and he literally cogently thinks it through and slows down. And he's, like I say, he's a heavy boy. So we'll go there. Because there's an emotional contextualization to that sound. Okay, so right there you saw how Anthony was there waiting, and then he blinked and he looked and moved, shifted. So what that is the sentient process of him waiting to see what I was doing as I have an interaction with him. I'm talking, so he doesn't know if I'm talking to him. So when I do actually talk now, I change tone on purpose so the dogs don't pick up that context and wreck all the stuff that I've worked on. So you see Anthony shifts sideways out of discomfort, out of like, I don't know, because he's not going anywhere. Why would he move? Then we put that supposition through potential reasons, and then we extrapolate, and then we conflate everything right through the aggregation of going, well, this is what the dog is doing, which is essentially consciousness, right? What the dog is doing. Because we put all the pieces together and we put the possibilities why he might be doing it, and then we put conclusions of what our own anecdotal experiences are with other human beings in regards to our sentient trait behaviors. That's why I say this is woke stuff. You can comprehend it because it makes sense psychologically. It's like children. So he shifted over. Something I want to kill. So the same thing with that thing right here. Anthony, where's the can of tuna? Right. So there it is, that process there, right? As you can see, I'm just going to see as a right. He's not pretending to be asleep. He's just closing his eyes because he's trying to process what's going on. In other words, it's overwhelming because I'm asking him something that he has a comprehension, whether or not it's very, very, very tiny. He has a comprehension. There's a connection because I'm talking to him in a certain way, and I'm using the same phrase that I've been using for the previous 30 minutes in a gentle, passive, and sometimes proactive manner. Play, etc. Objectification. We can say to our dog, where's the stick? David, we can teach our dog, where's the stick? We just have to say stick or leash or collar, and your dog knows. So what I'm saying is, as much as you guys kind of think, okay, this is ridiculous, or it is real, is the fact that we're doing the same thing in real life with stick, leash, ball, food dish, toy, etc. No difference. That's what I'm saying. So if we start pushing ourselves, saying there's no way a dog can actually bridge from leash to collar to knowing what a stuffy is to knowing what a can of tuna is, means that got to be dog woke. So there's the association. So that's why I say I showed him what can of tuna is in 30 minutes, in under 30 minutes, just like I would teach him what a ball is or a stick is. Can of tuna. Right? So I said can of tuna. He opens up his eyes because it's just me talking. It doesn't mean can of tuna. It means I said something, goes, what do you want? And he's waiting for me to interact with them. Anthony. So he looks over at me there just now. Then he looked back straight ahead. So then that again is an acknowledgement, a non-communicative, non-verbal communication between him and I. What do you want? What did you keep saying my name? If we apply that same behavior that we see in human beings, it's that easy, guys. That's why I'm saying be dog woke. Okay, so we'll go on. Can of tuna. Can of tuna. Oops. Can of tuna. Okay, so you can see there where his eyes shift downward. And he shifts downwards out of a natural cognitive behavior, right? It's a constructive behavior, putting the pieces together. That was subconscious in that application. So that means it verifies to me in that instant, he is aware. So then I continue the same tone that I used beforehand because it's structured the same way. And then I make variations as we progress forward in his comprehension of can of tuna in a different tonal aspects. So that way he will hear it during a regular conversation. right? We can sit there and talk on the side to somebody and hang out with them in a restaurant with a bunch of people talking, and we're talking to them, and someone goes, James, I'm going to look ahead because I hear them out of all the ambient noise because I'm geared towards that context of who I am, self-identity. When it comes to things like this, objectification of items, it's then putting on a possession with it. Just like stick, possession, playtime, emotional aspects of it. It's that simple. That's why I say, if people are saying that this is complicated, it's not.
Good boy, Anthony.
See his eyes? See? There. Self-doubt. Like I said, he wasn't sure, so he self-doubt, like looks out back there. Right? If you ever looked at a child who's in trouble and they look at you and what do they fidget? They look around. Same behavior. He looks to his left-hand side. So this is a cognitive process, not an emotional process. It's easy to destructure this behavior. We go on.
Can of tuna.
And there he is. He is doing exactly what he knows he's looking at. Can of tuna. So it's not saying that it's magic on my end. It's understanding the comprehension and the processing skills of each particular dog. Every dog has processing skills. Some dogs are higher intelligence, others aren't. I have one myself who I absolutely dearly love, but he is not as smart as the other dogs because he has a stronger emotional context, which overwhelms his intellectual ability to process. So the complexity is there. The complexity is here for you guys to all do. The name, using his name, all this passiveness, all of that stuff is here. So I'll just let this run out.
Good boy.
See the tail behavior?
Just like that.
So that's all the things that you guys can do. I'm just going to switch this back here now. Oops. Okay. So that's a structure. So let's get for my dog to sleep on the bed between me and my husband. Charlotte, 100%. 100%. It's family. Your dog wants to be close and wants to be safe. And that's the most important part. So when you bring them into the home, they're like, oh, this is awesome. I love it. This is so nice. This is a lot of fun. So we want them to understand that they can always rely on us. And we will always protect them. Because don't forget, your little dog or Great Dane, right? Chihuahua or Great Dane, we are to them 5 million times bigger and stronger and powerful. Don't forget, we feed them. We let them go pee. We hold them on leash. We do everything. We control everything that they do. So as long as we use that incredible power that we have over our dog and not be abusive and turn it towards a parental aspect, then you start to create that point where your dog starts to trust you. And then you can get amazing intellectual, cogent structures of behavior from your dog that you'll be like, oh my gosh, my dog is so present. I've had other dogs before, and that's what happens because then you start to really, truly connect, and then you start to understand. Thank you, everyone. And hopefully, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me at any time. And again, hope this was helpful, and thank you.